This is going to be great. We're going to love this. Do you have pens and papers ready? Thank you so much. When I said that, David said, you might tell me if they're texting out available or something. Pens and paper, who does that? I do, David. All right, it is time for our next presenter. He is going to lead us. No, he is a professional speaker, an executive coach, and he is going to help us develop trust. Please put your hands together. A very warm welcome to Mr. David Goes. David.
Thank you, sir. When I was 6 years old, I got my first loose tooth. Do you remember that? The baby teeth have to leave to make room for the adult teeth. And my dad saw me playing with it. And being a good dad, he came over and said, son, I can help you get rid of that. Like, well, what you talking about, Dad? No, I'll just take a Kleenex, grab onto it. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, and I'll just ease it right on out of there. I don't know, Dad. I maybe just let it fall out on its own. He's like, no, trust me. He puts the Kleenex up on my tooth. 1, 2. You know how a baby gets really quiet just before it screams really loud? Dad! This is why we have trust issues. My dad said he was going on 2. He said he was going on 3, and he went on 2. Flash forward to my teenage years. Now, this is not the actual scene. I found this on the internet. But my brothers and I used to move furniture for my dad in the summertime. It was a summer job. He owned apartments. He had this warehouse. And we had to move furniture back and forth across town. It was the end of a long, hot day in July. And we had 8 mattresses that needed to go from the apartment complex to the warehouse. Now, as you can see, this is an old Ford truck. You can fit about 5 mattresses comfortably in the back without any trouble. We had 8. So my brother Jeff does the math. Guys, we can do 2 trips of 4 or 1 trip with 8. And Brad's like, oh, wait a minute, won't the mattresses tip over? No, as a matter of fact, Brad, you get up on top and hold them down. Brad looked a little skeptical. Jeff said, how much do you weigh? I don't know, like 135 pounds, exactly the weight of a mattress. So your weight will cancel out the first mattress, and that one will hold all the rest of them down. We didn't have any straps, bungee cords, ropes, none of that stuff. We just had to get these mattresses across town. So Brad, skeptical as he was, heard Jeff say, trust me. He climbs up on top, spread eagle on that top mattress, reaches down and just grabs with his fingertips onto the trim around the cab, just to steady himself. Yeah, there's mothers out here I can say like, oh no, boys. We said, don't worry, Brad. We'll take it easy. We'll go nice and slow. Trust us. We start moving 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour. And one thing Jeff didn't calculate for was wind speed and the Bernoulli principle. We got to 20 miles an hour, gust of wind comes right at us, and I'm watching in the rearview mirror, which I tilted up so I could keep an eye on Brad. Brad starts to lift off. But just before he goes on a magic carpet ride, he screams out, hey! And I yell, brake! Jeff hits the brake, the mattress slides forward, just over the top of the cab, and stopped. Brad survives. And then he climbs down. I am never trusting you guys again. This is why we have trust issues. Fast forward to my corporate career. Anybody been burned at work? Somebody said they were going to do something, and it didn't turn out to be true. Well, I worked in Silicon Valley for about 30 years, various jobs, marketing, sales, video production, you name it. And these are these are the top 5 lies that I heard. Just 5, there's many more, Have you ever heard, we value fairness in hiring? What that really means is, my nephew starts on Monday. Lie number 4. Timing is everything in comedy. Lie number 4. We must virtualize and AI-enable the process. Anybody heard this one? What does it really mean? So we can remove all actual human beings from our customer service. Lie number 3. Trustworthy. We're switching to agile development. Anyone? Anyone? What does that mean? I have no idea what that means, so please try to look busy. Lie number 2. We need to socialize your idea. Because I want someone else to tell you how terrible it is. And lie number 1, I love this one. We trust you. But no, you can't work from home. This is why we have trust issues. And here we are today. There's been a lot of talk about online, in person. These 2 channels are never going away. You may have hoped to have this swing during the pandemic to all online and then back to business as usual with none of that online stuff. No, we need skill sets now for both of these worlds. It's not optional. And when I started my business about 7 years ago, this was before the pandemic, and I'd specialized in helping people present on camera. I'd been a talk show host, video producer. I had some skill set around that. So I said, I'm going to start my business and help people be on camera because there's lots of coaches teaching people to be on stage. I'm going to do this. And what happened in 2020 when the pandemic hit? The whole world went on camera overnight, and the demand for what I did went through the roof. And to this day, I went back and counted. I have trained or coached over 700 people in the last 4 years. Woohoo, yeah. Most of them paid. So, and I learned a lot about what kind of advice to give that actually helps people. Now, the people I'm talking about in corporate, we're talking CEOs, executive leadership teams, all the way down to like first level IT support, right? They don't all have Toastmasters experience. So today you're going to hear some things like, oh yeah, I know that. But hopefully you'll hear some of the things that I tell them to help them so that you can help new members in your clubs. That sound fair? That'd be helpful for you? All right, these are the things that seem to work the best. And the other thing I'm going to talk about today is a particular scenario of business communication where you are presenting up to a senior executive. Anybody have to do that? It's not just a peer staff meeting. It's like, you got to go, right? John, you said, yeah, I got to go ask for money, budget, resources. I need a green light on my project. So when you go present to someone a couple levels up in the company, to get those things, you got to be persuasive. And what many of my clients have told me is, I'm fine in person, but I have trouble online. I have trouble building trust. I have trouble reading the room because there's no room. How do I do this? So that's where I focus a lot of my effort in helping them. But here's the principle. Here's the mindset principle to live by. You can't swing on a trapeze. No, that's right. Imagine you are this trapeze artist here on the left. That's the senior executive. You are the trapeze artist over here on the right, trying to convince them that they should climb up a 100-foot ladder, jump, swing through the air, let go, and you're going to catch them. Some of you are breaking out in hives just thinking about that, right? But you're the one on the right saying, trust me. So what do you think this trapeze artist on the left did before she made that leap? Just holler it out, some people. What things would you do before jumping out there into space? Work with a net, right? Okay, so that's like a pilot program. Let's do it 3 feet off the ground before we do it 100 feet off the ground. I like it. What else? Pray? Okay. Yeah, some meditation, some prayer. It's a good thing. What else would you do? Oh, check your references. Has he caught somebody who weighs 123 pounds before? All right. Maybe I'll throw a big bag of potatoes out there first and see how he does with that. Right. What else would you do? Run. Okay. Yeah. You may just say, you know what? I'm not doing it. No. The answer is no. Anything else? Oh, interview them. Ask them, what is your experience? See if you believe what they tell you. Ooh. I don't know about you, but I would not jump out there without doing all those things and more. And this is the scenario that you're in. You cannot just demand trust. You have to earn it. Right? It takes work. Some people want to hack for everything. I want a shortcut. I just want to make them trust me. Just to give me 2 or 3 things I can do so they trust me right away. Salespeople are like this. I need the hacks, man. Give me the hack. I got to get through. I got 100 people in my pipeline I got to work through. This is my definition of trust. It's believing enough to take the risk. Do any of you have 100% trust in everyone in your life? Anybody have one? I'm waiting to hear. Yes. You trust your husband 100%. So if somebody put a gun to his head, no, I'm not going to give you a serious. I'm just going to. Okay. Awesome. And that just happened overnight, right? No. How long would you say it took before you completely trusted? About 25 years. Okay, 25 years. That's pretty good. Doesn't happen. There's no hack for trust. You have to earn it. So, the first time you ask a leader for something, think of it as an audition, right? And this is the strategy. Don't blow it. Okay, thanks. That's my TED Talk. There's this first impression, and there's a second impression, and a third impression, and a fourth impression. But that first impression, the first time you go to them and say, I need 4 new headcount. I need some budget. I want your green light on this next program. I want to be the next program quality director. Right? You're asking someone to put some faith in you, and this thing is just going crazy on me. So I'm going to go over a few things that would disqualify you from being trusted, and also some things that would help qualify you. Because this is really, in business communication, every day you're going in with some level of skepticism, asking, should I trust this person? Should I believe it? Is this relevant to me? Should I spend my time on this? I can be multitasking. Do I have to listen to this Zoom meeting? So if you're the presenter, presenting up to a senior executive, what do you need to do to earn trust? Ooh, I got it now. First impression, this audition, there's 2 things. There's what you display and what you say. I'm going to go to each one of those, red flags and green flags in each one. And then finally, what you do, that's over time. That's the 25 years that she spent, building trust with her husband. But on your first date, he had to qualify, right? Yeah. Anybody done online dating? How many people just get like swipe left, swipe left, swipe left? Yeah. Just on what they look like. So in business, you also are forming an opinion. You all formed an opinion of me when I walked up here on stage. You're like, oh, look at that guy. Who's he kidding? His hair is thinning, but he combs it all forward to try to hide that. I mean, come on. So let's go into, I know it's going to work. There we go. What you display. The red flags and the green flags. There's a hiring manager that I knew at Cisco, and he had this trick for gauging his interview candidates. He'd bring them in, walking past the employee cafeteria. Oh, would you like a hot cup of coffee or tea? And he would get them a nice ceramic cup with a little saucer, and get the cream, sugar, whatever you want in there. They'd carry it with them into the interview room, and then he would watch what they did with the cup after the interview. Some people would just leave it there. Some would pick it up and say, hey, what do I do with this? And some would pick it up, walk it back to the room when they got it, wash it out, dry it, put it away. Which person would you hire? Yeah, the right answer is it depends, right? It's not the only factor. But he would disqualify people based on that. Because if you have that level of courtesy, for me, how are they going to treat their team members? That is a red flag, is a lack of courtesy. This even begins when you're responding to their text messages, their email. How fast do you get back to people? How do you treat the executive administrator sitting at the desk outside the boss's office? Woo! I learned a long time ago, you make friends with the admins because they run the world. So let's go a little in person, like we're doing right now, and then I'll talk about on camera. So first of all, in person, what do they see when you walk on stage? Is Richard still here? Richard, can you come up and join me for a second? And I'm not going to go deep into this because I know you're an advanced crowd, but there's one thing I've noticed with corporate presenters, and it's how much movement you have on stage will determine a level of trust that the audience has in you. So a round of applause for Richard over here. Richard back here. So just stand there and look awesome. Just, don't move. Okay. All right. A model of confidence, trustworthy guy. So I'm just going to stand next to him, and for 20 seconds, I want you to watch both of us, and then I'm going to ask you a question. No, you just. All right, time's up. Who do you trust more? As he runs off into the sunset. Why? I'm not nervous. You said I was nervous? I looked nervous. I didn't feel nervous, but I looked nervous. Wow. Look at that. I have no butterflies inside, but they perceived that I did because I was just, fidgeting, looking around, picking my teeth, or people do on stage. And that's the thing I noticed with executive presenters, is the ones who are the most under control, right? That's the perception. Why? Why do you want to just plant your feet and stand and deliver? Because they perceive that you know what you're talking about. It's a level of credibility and authority just because you don't have all these extraneous movements. Now, I watched you on stage today. You did a fantastic job. He had intentional movement, as one of our evaluators said. He would move to part of the stage and plant his feet. But what I see in corporate, and you may have seen this at conferences, is the high energy speaker, right? Hey, buddy, I'm talking about you some things today. I'm going to be pacing back and forth. I look like a tiger at the zoo, man. I'm just going to throw me some meat. I'm going to eat it. Yeah. I just keep moving because it's energy. I got energy. Yeah. That's the guy I trust. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, David.
It's, do you look like you're under control and comfortable? Because when you look uncomfortable, people notice. And it can be perceived the wrong way. Green flag, under control. And now, how many of you have showed up to a Toastmasters meeting in person with a bag over your head? No one? Have you ever showed up to an online meeting and turned your camera off? Oh, yeah. How does it make everybody else feel in the meeting when they can't see you? This is the basis of trust. People are looking for data. And that earlier picture I showed you, the room in person and the room online, we love the room in person because I can see all of you. I can see whether your body language is good. I see nods and smiles over here. Good. Uh-oh, I heard a heavy sigh in the corner, so maybe I'm gonna call on Joey to make sure she's awake, right? And I hear a squeak of a chair. I see somebody standing over there like, this is data that you have. In the online meeting, we get this little window to look into, and it may be on or off. If you're the one persuading, turn it on every time. Set the example. I have a little trick for getting people to turn on their cameras in online meetings at work. Because a lot of people just don't do it. Hey, everyone. I'm going to be presenting today. Can you just turn on your camera and say hello? And then once we dive into the content, feel free to turn it off. How many people do you think turn the cameras on when I say that? Oh, okay, I guess I can do that. Pop it on. Hey, what's up? How you doing? And then they leave it on. And I say, if you have a question today, I'd like you to raise your hand like this so I can see it in your video, and I'll know to call on you first. Oh, now I'm giving more value to the camera. I use the chat to say, I'm going to do a poll. I'm just going to survey everybody. See these 3 priorities I have on the slide? I want you each to go into the chat now and rank these 3 priorities in the order you think they should be in. And go. Wow, he really means it. He wants us to do this. Okay. Oh gosh, I better do it because everybody else is doing it. Peer pressure. Okay, oh, look at all the responses in the chat. Wow, we have this one. Oh, interesting. Ed, you're the only one that thinks number 3 should be number 1. Tell me a little bit more about that. See how you're just easing in people, even the introverts have to participate. You don't want to be in the spotlight, but I can just gently ask a question and draw them in. So having the cameras on gives you so much more data, and if you're trying to persuade a senior executive, believe me, they want to see your face. I want to watch your eyebrows. They're watching every little micro expression that you do to see, does she believe it? Because I'm not sure I believe it if she doesn't believe it. Cameras on. Boop. I'm not going to go deep into this. You all learned this in the pandemic, but I want to give you a couple of things that the why behind the advice. Why should you have your camera at eye level? So you can see your face, but also look at the angle. We have this lovely view up her nose in the upper left because, like most people, she takes her laptop, sticks it down on the desk, and she's talking down to people, literally. Now, if you raise that up, look how she looks in this corner, like we're sitting across the table at Starbucks having a conversation. So what we're trying to do here is simulate the real person experience as closely as possible. It's like, Ed, if we were at Starbucks having coffee and talking, I would hear you pretty plainly. You would speak up a little bit if, I was leaning in or like, huh, right? Online, people don't speak up. And the little microphones in the laptop don't capture audio very well. And this is my number 1 advice to give for anybody who's quiet in meetings. Hey, could you speak 10% louder? Give them a number. Okay, I need 20%. Now try 30%. And be amazed at how they just suddenly amp up. Magnus, do you have a question? 1,000%. 1,000%. Okay, I can't do that because I'll blow out the microphone. So, don't show up in shadow. This guy's in the witness protection program. I don't know what he's thinking. And all these other weird angles, staring at your other monitor, looking down, little tiny, Kilroy was here. Instead, get your eyes on the upper third line. This is hard to do. I give this advice, and people continually center their head in the center of the frame instead of in that upper third. Notice how she fills up the frame, like 3 slices of cake right there. That way, people can also see your hands. Look at news anchors, the way they're framed. Hands and arms are visible, so when they do gestures, you can see them, and they're not down here below the equator where I don't know what you're doing down there. By the way, gestures on camera. How many of you actively gesture on camera? Yeah, you've been taught in Toastmasters. You've had some training on this. I just can't believe how many people do the just sit down, fold the arms, look at that, talking head. And that's all you get. And it's visually uninteresting. So for the executives trying to decide if they trust you or not, they're looking for clues. Are they excited about this idea? I can't tell. Their eyebrows don't move. You ever notice? Actors are great just with their eyebrows. They can tell you a whole story. So get your face involved. Speaking of faces, which one of these is better? The smile? Did I hear somebody say it depends? It depends, right? Because if this guy on the right is telling me a tragic story and smiling, I'm going to think he's a psychopath. And the one on the left tells you he's the funniest guy in the world, then that's the face that goes along with it. I don't believe it. It's about consistency, right? Get your face involved, but make sure, and a lot of smiles, overly smiling, looks like nervousness. Like I'm doing right now. Yeah. I smile a lot, yeah. Here's another secret superpower. When the senior executive is now talking to you, and you're the listener, don't just look down and take notes or look at the chat or look all around the room when they're talking. Give them this gift of leaning forward, slightly tilted head. Give them the nods and smiles. And if you look into the camera, not at their video, look up directly into the lens, they'll be like, wow, Chiboy is so dialed in. She's just like listening to every word I have just because I see her eyes. So play that little trick with the eye contact. By the way, if any of you here want to set up a 30-minute Zoom with me, I'll do a complete audio-visual home studio tune-up with you, help you with the lights, camera, action, microphones, all of that. And that's the place to practice that. You'll be amazed at the difference it makes when you get into the actual meeting. This guy on the right looks like what? What's that body language tell you? Bored? What else? What else could it be? Lack of interest? What else? Simon Cowell, yeah. He looks like he's just waiting just to blast you, right? As soon as you shut up, I'm just going to take it to you. What else? Studying. But he's intense, right? There's an intensity because he's just sitting back instead of leaning forward. It's just enough, and the shoulders are cocked, eyes furrowed brow. When people are happy, I don't know if anybody studied Jane Goodall and seen her research on chimps. You'll notice that when a chimpanzee goes walking into another tribe, like another area that's not their family, they'll come in like this. Palms up. Look, I have no weapons. Eyebrows up. Big smile. See, I'm not a threat. I'm good. Versus any animal that looks at you like this, you're about to get eaten. Give them the gift of your eyes. This is hard to do. We'll practice it online. If you want to set up a little coaching session, I'd be happy to do that. But let's try a quick exercise just on the power of eye contact. You got 20 seconds to turn and face somebody directly across the table from you. Just find a partner that you can look right across the table, straight into their eyes. Give you 20 seconds. Just do this. Who you got? Jane, you and Zach. Find someone to look at. Hey, everybody's got a partner? All right, now we do need quiet for this exercise. I'll let you talk in a moment. When I say go, see, you can't help it. There's connection happening. When I say go, I want you to make zero sound and just look into the eyes of the person across from you. And we're going to do this for 60 seconds. Just look into their eyes, and then I'm going to ask you a question afterwards. When I say go, the silence begins. And go. No whispering. Forty more seconds. 15, 14, 13. Hold that gaze. And stop. Release. So put your hand up if you learned something about the person across from you that you'd like to share with us. Yes, Mary Kay, what did you learn?
I wasn't intending to share, but I did learn a lot.
What did you learn?
That
Montserrat?
Montserrat is very intense. She has a lot of history. And I felt very vulnerable, but I was open to it because I'm in a safe place. and that, we could have a lot to share.
Very good. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, did you talk to her at all? You got a lot from just looking in her eyes, right? Okay. Somebody else who learned? Yes.
I learned from Mike that he's very comfortable with himself. He just had a nice smile, not overly smile. And we're just comfortable just sitting and staring.
Wait, would you trust him?
And I would definitely.
Really? Just from looking in his eyes? You don't know what kind of nefarious things he's been up to. One more. Who else learned something interesting? Yes.
I learned from Amrit that he has a lot to say, but that he is careful to know when is the right time to actually say it.
He has a lot to say, but he's careful to know when he has the right time to say it. Did you read his mind? How did you do that? Just the eyes. Interesting. Anybody feel really awkward in that exercise? Yes, Nora Lee. Why? Who was your partner? Dennis. Okay. Why was it awkward for you? Enough about me. What do you think of me?
Really uncomfortable and smiling sometimes. And I could see his eyes kind of shift to the side and then kind of close and then kind of open and then come back forward and just the whole. That's 1 minute's way too long.
Yeah, and I did that on purpose, but because most of the time we don't hold that gaze. Even in a stage like this, I'm looking around the room. I try to finish the thought. I'll look at Amric. I'm telling my whole point. I'm going to go all the way to the end of the sentence, locked in with him. And then when I'm done, now I'll move on. You may have heard this before, but if you interrupt your eye contact in the middle of a sentence, you lose the credibility and trust you built in that. So when you have to look at your notes, look away, and we have to cheat and look somewhere else, do it in the middle of a sentence and not at the end. So here's, if you want to learn how to use notes, let's say I'm looking at the camera. Hi, everybody. I'm talking about my point number 1, and now I'm done with point number 1. And now here's number 2. You see the obvious look? But while I'm talking about point number 1, and I'm looking up into my camera to give my gift of eyes to all of you people watching online right now I'm going to look down and see people and the nods and the smiles. Okay, whew, I'm getting what I need. I'm doing fine. And now I'll finish my point back into the camera. And now here's the next part. See how you have this opportunity. So cheat your looks to the notes, to the videos, all that stuff in the middle of a sentence and not at the end. Makes it less obvious. Let's move on past the eyes. This is really fun to play with in one-on-one coaching, by the way. Okay, I'm not going to go too much on this because you all know this stuff, but on a stage like this, at least pick 3 spots. This is what I do with the pacers. People are like, the crouching tigers that are moving. Just stop, knees toward the audience, lock it in, and finish that little story. Well, that vignette is done. And now let's talk about how we got here. I was in college, drinking a 6-pack of beer, right? And now come back to the present. And now what do we do in the future? Boom. At least 3 spots on the stage because people want physical proximity with you. In a room, who remembers in elementary school when someone was talking in the corner, what does the teacher do? Eyes up front, and then physically with your body, you go over and you stand next to them, right? Just let them know, I hear you. I hear you talking. You go, oh, teacher's getting close. People want connection. The physical proximity matters, but the real point of this slide is the eye contact. In a room like this, maybe you've been taught you need to look at everyone. Okay, I'm going to do a quick exercise. Who here, raise your hand if you feel like I've looked at you at least one time in the last 20 minutes. Pretty good. And raise your hand now if I haven't looked at you. Raise your hand if I've never looked at you. Okay, I just want to get all those in. Very funny, Jane. I look at you all the time. Okay, so here's the trick I give to corporate presenters, and you can also help your newbies, new Toastmasters with this. Just pick 5 friendly faces, right? And you want to do it in maybe a W pattern, like this. So somebody back there, I see Dennis, he looks good, okay. Jane, of course, she's always smiling. And then back here, I've got, yeah, Is that Linda? Yeah, okay. She's nodding and smiling. Good. And then down here, no, Louise is kind of scowling at me. I'm not going to look at her. Let's go with, yeah, John. John's always got a smile on his face. And then back here. And I'll just, in the W pattern, just back and forth, lock in, finish my story with that person, move to the next friendly face. Because if you get caught up in people's reactions in the audience, it'll throw you off because you become self-conscious instead of audience conscious. I don't know if you were there, but the first year that I went to the regional Toastmasters speech competition, international speech, and I was on stage delivering my fully memorized 7-minute and 24-second speech. And I'm just cranking through and I'm having fun and people are laughing and everything's going good. And then I suddenly see a guy who was sitting in the audience doing this. And everyone else is laughing. And immediately I went, boop, inward. Why is he not laughing? And then the next line just went, poof, disappeared. And you know that kind of feeling when the adrenaline rushes and like blush on your neck and your mouth gets dry and you're like, oh my gosh, I just forgot my place in the Toastmasters regional championship. So what did I do? And it came to me. I just walked 3 steps, which felt like a full minute, right, to me. And afterwards, I asked for feedback. I said, hey, did you see that punch? I forgot my place. Oh my gosh, I just bombed the whole thing. Like, what? You lost your place? People didn't know. They thought, oh, I thought you were just being thoughtful. I did this in a corporate meeting once too. I totally just blanked, forgot my spot. And I just looked down at the front row like, where was I? And some retentive note taker was there. Oh, you're on number 2. It's B, a 3rd word, 4th letter. And brought me right back. So use the 5 friendly faces. This is maybe the new information here is if there's a camera in the room somewhere, if there's a camera in the room, make that one of your friendly faces. So as you sweep the room, even tell a story right to that little black hole. It's so hard to stare at a little piece of plastic and pretend it's a human being. Would you admit? That's difficult. But when you do it, 100,000 people that watch that video later all think you're talking just to them. That's a superpower you can't do in person like this. All right, moving ahead. The audition. Now, what you say. Okay, first thing is just make it about them, not about you. And you guys know this when you hear a lot of I instead of you. Like, it's the I versus you ratio in that. So be about what they want. And this is what I teach in corporate. When you're presenting up to senior executives, don't bury the lead. They don't want to be sitting there like it's some kind of murder mystery, like what's this all about? And by the way, our evaluation speaker today, I loved your speech, but that's what I was doing in the back of the room. Oh, this is a history lesson. Where's he going with this? Okay, more facts, all right. But what's the point? Anybody else feeling that? Like in a corporate meeting, it's the worst because that boss will just interrupt you. If you get interrupted a lot, it's usually because you're rambling too much and you've buried the lead. Remember that from journalism? If a man bites a dog, you don't bury it down at the bottom of the story. That's the headline. So start with the point. And I have a 1-minute intro in 60 seconds or less. You can do this at the beginning of any senior executive presentation. You start with, I'm here because I'm talking about this topic. Do I still have 20 minutes? Yes, great. Today I'll be asking for this. Right up front. Put the request right up front. If you say yes, here's the business impact of that. And now, here's my agenda. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the agenda before I begin? 60 seconds or less. And senior executives like this because they're not going to be sitting there listening, wondering what it's all about. They will listen differently. They'll be preparing to say yes. Now I know what evidence to listen to. So what you say, if you want to build trust, don't bury the lead, get right to the point. Biggest red flag of all, what do you think it is? Oh, you scientists, you engineers, you technical experts. Don't talk too much. It's just enough. Give them the short answer and then ask them if they want the long answer. I coach people constantly who say, well, I just want to give them everything they need to know just in case, right? Just go short, ask them if they want more. Talking too fast. Why do people talk too fast? Have you ever thought about that? Nervous is one reason, and that's a perception the audience has. Why else would they talk too fast? Timing constraint. Yes, Magnus, you hit it right on the head. If you know you've got a 30-minute presentation, and you brought 30 slides for your 30-minute presentation, and the executive interrupts you on slide number 2, and you go into a conversation that goes down a rabbit hole, what do you do when you come back from that? I better go 80 miles an hour now, right? So if your train's going 80 and the audience is processing at 60 miles an hour, what happens? Math whizzes. Anybody? You lose them, right? So the antidote to that is not slowing down your speech. You've learned how fast you talk in your childhood, and it's hard to beat that. It's hard to slow down. Some people can think very quickly and get a lot of words out. The trick is letting your audience catch up. So what I teach is, absolutely, you know the value of this. I mean, pause for a long time. Okay, took 7 seconds and I heard somebody say something. This is my unscientific research, but I do this in meetings all the time. I can never pause for more than 7 seconds without somebody laughing, saying something, responding in some way. So use that to your advantage. If you want people to speak, the worst way to ask for questions is to say, are there any questions? Okay, I guess we don't have any, we'll keep going. But if you say, I'd like to hear from you now, just 2 or 3 people, maybe a minute each, on how you think this is going to work in your environment. So let's go with Sherry, Jane, and Zach. Ready? Sherry, take it away. Do you think you would get response from those people? Yes. You're very polite, very diplomatic about it, but you're being specific. I also use the chat to draw people in that way. You guys know about fillers. I teach this in corporate because they haven't been taught. If they've never been to a Toastmasters meeting, remember the clickers? Anybody remember the clicker? That like dog training device, right? That negative click, 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 click. So I just said, it conveys nervousness because you look like you're not under control. You're not confident, and therefore I'm not sure that I can trust you. And here's my number 1 trick for helping people get rid of ums. You want to hear it? Thank you. See, I paused and waited for a response. Is when you get to the end of that sentence, and give me a 2-second pause, and I want you to inhale. I want you to breathe in that 2 seconds, because when air is coming in, no can come out. And it's magical. People will count. 2. And here's my second point. The next sentence is a lot stronger, as well as there's no possible way for a filler to come out. This one is, you may not realize when you do it, but you're trying to be polite, you're trying to be courteous. Softeners. Like, I was just hoping maybe, I was just trying to, ask for some money and hoping maybe you'd approve it, right? These are the ones I hear all the time. Like, I was hoping. Get rid of those because the senior executive will just see, you're not ready for prime time. You're not bold enough. In other words, they're judging whether you believe the idea enough for them to believe it. Excessive cliches. This is just lazy. If you're still saying, let's get all of our ducks in a row, you're in the last century, right? Be specific. Get right to the heart of what it is. Don't use these. It sounds like jargon. People start dismissing you when you say it. And the last one here is the one I wanted to address, because what do most people say when you ask them a question? What's that time-buying device? Great question. Great question. Great question. Great question. Great question. And you forget to say it one time, and that person's like, oh, what was it, my question? Great. Instead of great question, say anything else. It's interesting you should ask that. You know, you're not the only one who's brought up that topic. And even better, when you have a hard question, the hardball question, like you're in a job interview and they're asking you, what makes you think you can do this job? Paraphrase before you answer. This is a great technique. I practice it with all my clients, and it has 3 parts. I want to make sure I understand what you're asking. You're asking this because of this, right? I had that little twist, like, I think this is why you're asking. Is that correct? And then pause and wait for an answer. Somebody give me a hardball question. Ask me a hard one. Magnus.
What is your social security number?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand your question. You're asking what's my social security number because you're going to be processing my job application. You just want to make sure it's accurate. Is that correct?
No, I want to hack into your bank.
Okay. I'm glad I paraphrased. Right? But any question that comes to you, this is a way to take the energy and shift it back to the other person. Right? If you feel on the spot, in the spotlight, being judged by that senior executive, this is a way to push it back to them for a moment, make them work. And if they say, yes, that's exactly what I was asking, like, good, now we proceed to the answer. If they say, no, that's not what I was asking at all. Oh, could you please clarify? You win either way. All right. Finally, let's just touch on what you do. Now we've passed the audition, right? You didn't disqualify yourself any of the red flags. They're willing to listen to you, at least give you a shot to do the program, use the budget, use the people. So this is the other principle that I talk about a lot, is this private versus public dynamic. Have you ever worked with somebody who's really good in one-on-one, and they're nice, and they're polite, and diplomatic, and then you have a meeting with a bunch of people around, and they tear you one, like completely inconsistent? It's because they're in the political arena. Other people are watching. It's like on the playground in elementary school when 2 guys are up against, like, yeah, you want to fight? Yeah, you want to fight? And they're not really going to fight, but then the crowd gathers around, and you have to fight. If you can, get those people out of the public thing. I had this one lady at Cisco who constantly did this. She just wanted to come in and make trouble. She's trying to glorify herself. So I started having pre-meetings with her. Hey, Susan, you always have great ideas. Let's talk for 15 minutes before we get into the big meeting, just so I can make sure we're in sync. She'd give me a good idea, and I would represent her in the meeting. Hey, everybody, Susan said this. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm happy. I just want my little political moment. And this is what my grandmother always said, Catherine Glisson, Davy, the truth is easy to keep track of. Enough said. I was trying to lie to her about stealing some ice cream, and she saw me struggling. She's going to help me out. The truth is easy to keep track of, even when you're not at work. So you're here at a conference, District 39, and you're dancing with people. And I was at a conference not that long ago, and it was executive admins, like 250 in the audience. And that night they had this special dance with the DJ. Well, the executive admin group is, let's say, 99% female. I was the only guy. I'm like, should I go out there and dance on the dance floor? What the heck? But knowing full well that I know a little ballroom dancing because Jane and I have been dancing for 6 years, I was the only guy that could somewhat dance, and 2 hours later, I was a sweaty mess, and I had been tossed around on the dance floor. And as I was being tossed around, I could see all the right? We're all on public display. There are phones. By the way, Jane says, yeah, go on the dance floor, please. And next day, there's a picture of me. I called her first. Get ready, some pictures are coming. All right, another real quick. This is you yes people. Who are the ones that are likely to say yes first? Yes. Say yes and figure it out, right? Yes. Even when your plate is totally full and you know you're not going to ever do it, but you say yes anyway? Yeah. Fastest way to destroy trust. I had a new boss at Cisco. She came in. David, I was going to give you this new project. She's kind of like assessing what I had on my plate, and she could see me struggling on my face. I was like, I didn't want to say no because it's the new boss. And fortunately, she said, David, you could say no. Like, took that heat off of me. And I really appreciated that because I was going to fail. And when you say yes and fail, it's worse. And just saying, no, I can't do that right now. Let me help in some way, find other resources, anything but saying yes when you know you can't do it. That's what integrity is all about. And finally, when trust is gone, what do you do to get it back? What's the number one thing you should do? Shout it out. What was that? I heard apologize. Take ownership of it, yes? Who remembers the Odwalla foodborne illness outbreak? This is back in like 1997 or so, up in Washington. The apple juice was tainted with E. coli. Remember you used to have those Odwalla things in the grocery stores? Well, a child actually died. 20 people got sick. There were lawsuits. And the president of Odwalla had an opportunity to step up to these microphones and blame it on everybody else. He could have blamed the farmers, the fertilizer people, the supply chain, the truckers, whoever sets up the refrigerated units. But instead, he just stepped up and said, I own this problem. We're going to fix it. They pulled all their apple juice products off the shelf. This is like millions of dollars in losses to do that. And then every day he had a press conference saying, this is what we're doing now. This is what we're doing next. And the company survived. Survived enough to eventually be purchased by Coca-Cola years later. But you hear this a lot in people not willing to take that ownership. The first thing they do is blame. It's the fastest way to get a reputation for not being trustworthy. To recap, don't let red flags ruin your audition. That first meeting is so important. Build your case over time. You got to be honest. You got to do what you say you're going to do with integrity. And be consistent. Be consistent off the court as well as on the court. And finally, own your mistakes and fix them. And this is my final thing for you. For me to trust you, I have to believe that you believe it too. Stay with Toastmasters. It's going to make a huge difference. And the new people that come into your clubs, tell them to stick around. It will make a difference in their life. I close with this story. Who remembers Raj Jawahar? Joey? This is a Tracy Toastmaster. And when he joined our club, he couldn't get 2 words out of his mouth in table topics. He stood up there, and the 2 words were, I'm sorry. And he went to sit down. And in true Toastmasters fashion, what happened? All right, Raj! All right! Woo! You got it there and gave it a go. And each time, he got a few more words out. He's struggling. And one day, he still kept coming to the meetings. It was maybe 3 months in, and he went back and sat down after he just blew his whole speech. And I watched his body language. Just literally deflated, looking down, staring into his breakfast. And after the meeting, I just took a moment and went over and said, Raj, if you stick with this, it's going to make a huge difference in your life. I'll help you. I'll be your personal coach. Stay with this. He's like, okay, David, yes, David. 3 months later, he was doing humorous speech contests, imitating a female voice as part of a funny story. This guy couldn't get 2 words out of his mouth because he stuck with it. He said, I trust you, Raj. We're here. You can trust us. Fast forward several years later, I'm in the Tracy Mall, and I bump into Raj. You know, people move on, and I hadn't seen him in quite a while. And he walks up to me. He says, David, how you doing? Yeah. I said, hey, how's your job? Oh, I got promoted, and these things are great. And just before we left, he goes, hey, I just want to tell you this. Remember that day when you told me to stick with it? That was the day I was quitting. And you came over and just gave me that little word of encouragement. And I just want to thank you for doing that. So as you help your people in your clubs build trust when they speak, they're also trusting in you to be there for them. Earning trust is critical, and you can't demand it. This is my free offer for anybody. Anyone in Toastmasters that needs coaching, I coach for free because this organization has given so much to me. If you want an audio-visual tune-up, sit in your home office, we'll play with the lights, microphone, angles, all that stuff. I'll help you out. I'll also give you a copy of these slides, a PDF, if you like that when we meet. So take down this, calendly.com/bookdavidgoad or davidgoadspeaks@gmail.com. And I don't believe we have any time for questions, but if anybody has one, I'd be happy to take one. One really question you've been burning to ask. Yes?
What do you do when you get interrupted every 30 seconds and you're trying to really earn that trust to bring that proposal to the C-suite?
Yes, getting interrupted frequently. So sometimes it's because they're just a bully and a big jerk. Yeah, honestly, we're surrounded by people that never learned manners. However, if you want to work on things that yourself that you can control, one is be concise. Make sure you're not using any extra words. Nothing. Like work on editing things down to be short. And I have a technique called short answer, long answer. Somebody asks you a question, you say, the short answer is no. Would you like to hear more? Instead of, okay, so what makes you think your team's going to be able to, accomplish this year when you failed so miserably last year? Well, let me make sure I understand your question. You're asking, what do you think is different this year on the team versus last year, and how we might be able to accomplish the goal that I'm asking for? Is that correct? And now they're going to help you edit. They're going to put it in the box that, well, that's exactly what they're asking. So you got to get that. You're trying to get the back of the head conversation out to the foreground. So one thing is in that the content, what you're asking, how you respond. The other is your level of boldness. I'm telling you, there's some mousy, hesitant people in business, especially if you're not feeling it. Oh my gosh, I'm going in there to ask for $100,000. I feel good asking. My butt's going to be on the line if I get that $100,000. And that comes out in all these subconscious ways that you can't help. There's your body language, so you have to overrule that. So it's what you say and also the boldness. I'll tell you this, I think senior executives favor the bold. They want you to be a little more cocky than you are. They want to see a little more confidence because, and this is what I've heard from senior executives, I get pitched 10 ideas a day. I usually say yes to about one of them. So if you want to be the one, you've got to be the one that steps up and makes them believe that you believe in this idea so much, and I'm giving the money to you because I believe you're going to execute. Is that helpful? Okay. And yes, Amric.
When should you stand or sit when you're doing presentations online?
Online. That depends. If you stand up, the advantages are better airflow, more natural gestures. The dangers of it are a lot of swaying, people get nervous, they're standing, you get tired, and that moving around like that is actually worse. Because when you're sitting, it's at least you're locked in posture and let your hands do the movement. Intentional gestures, not this, right? People say, "Tell me my hands move too much." Well, just be more intentional with it then. We have option A, we have option B. You get to choose which one you want. Swivel chairs, lock down your swivel chair. Don't allow a chair that lets you do this. Lock it down or get a chair that doesn't roll. I see people just moving all around. Yes. Answer your question? Okay. One more. Yes, Deborah.
Because I teach as a substitute, I like sitting on a stool, and you do get more air that way.
Yes. So she teaches as a substitute. She sits on a stool in front because you get better airflow. And this is something when I work corporate conferences and they have panel discussions. You ever seen the panel or the fireside chat? What kind of chairs do they bring out for the fireside chat? You're like Abraham Lincoln, like sunk down in here. It's the worst possible airflow. You're like, and they kind of hunch over and just like, it's hard to have energy like this. I take the chairs away. I force them to bring stools, like you just said, because then you're up like this. You have to have a straight back posture. Yeah, nice observation. And they see you. So I'm going to cut it off there just for time. I want to appreciate all of your kind attention. It's been a lot of fun, and I love District 39. Thank you for being in the audience today. That's right.
One more time for David, yes? Thank you, sir. Such a blessing, such great information.
That's right.